For nearly a decade, solitude had been his only companion. Just the whispered conversations with livestock and the endless prairie wind. Yet everything shifted the moment they hoisted that Apache woman from the ancient oak in Cold Pine's heart. Jed Harper understood his quiet existence was ending, especially seeing those badge-wearing men securing the noose while a blood-stained preacher muttered hollow words. The mountain air sliced through the settlement like steel, each breeze carrying threats that compassion held no currency here. Standing near his supply wagon, Grainsack gripped tight. Jed witnessed her suspended form knot, the lifeless sway of the departed. But the desperate struggle of someone clinging to existence, the bag tumbled from his grasp. Cold Pine had abandoned. Justice long ago, not since their lawman had auctioned off righteousness to whoever paid most. Her body convulsed violently, fighting the tightening rope. Ice flooded his veins. The last time he'd glimpsed a woman in traditional buckskin, his beloved wife still drew breath. Instinctively, his fingers found the blade on his hip, pure reflex, not conscious thought. Onlookers whispered and shifted nervously, yet nobody moved to intervene. The spectacle wasn't about justice, it was about sending a message. Something restrained him. Perhaps her unwavering gaze through the strangling rope. Maybe how the desert wind transformed her silence into an unfinished melody, or the understanding that true warriors never pleaded. But this wasn't combat. This was cold-blooded murder. And she hadn't uttered a single cry. The settlement slumbered as it always did, windows barricaded. Lights extinguished, quietude stretched gossamer thin. But sleep eluded Jed Harper tonight. He remained motionless on his narrow bed above the stables, boots firmly planted, studying the wooden rafters above. Her image consumed the darkness. Not her physical beauty, though strength carved her features, the determination in her cheekbones, her refusal to shed tears. Most haunting was the profound stillness in her eyes, a silence that roared louder than any executioner's rope could silence. Rising cautiously, he moved without sound. Moonbeams painted silver stripes through the barn's weathered boards. His rifle stayed behind tonight, required only sharp steel. Down the hillside, past the dried riverbed and the tilting chapel, the cottonwood waited with arms stretched wide, eternally prepared for its grim purpose. No sentries, no flames. Just her silhouette swaying gently in the night breeze, as if she'd merged with the shadows. Once close enough, he moved swiftly. Blade ready, footsteps muffled by dust. A single clean cut severed the rope, and she collapsed into his embrace. Weightless as a whisper, a shallow breath escaped her lips. Life persisted. She felt fragile, skin frigid, clothing shredded where the rope had chafed. Her wrists bore bindings. He freed those next, working carefully to avoid further harm. She remained silent, eyes closed, but her chest moved rhythmically. Faint as morning mist, Jed never glanced backward while carrying her from town. No reason to Cold Pine had chosen its path. Now he'd chosen his by the time they reached his. Property's edge, dawn's first blush painted the eastern peaks. His dwelling sat peacefully, windows dark, chimney cold, exactly as he preferred. He placed her on his bed, retrieved the spare woolen cover, kindled the small stove, and heated water in a metal pot. Flames danced softly while her breathing steadied in the warm glow. Finally examining her closely, she appeared barely 20. Apache, certainly cheekbones, reminiscent of his late wife, neck bruised purple, blood at her temple, dirt embedded in her skin, yet beneath the damage lay something unbreakable, strength forged through trials, not terror, his finger traced. An old scar across her palm deep, intentional, a survivor's marking. This wasn't her first escape from death's embrace, he suspected, settling beside her, elbows resting on knees, hands clasped ears of isolation. And now this woman breathed his air, occupied his bed. Her name remained unknown, her history a mystery, but one truth emerged. Those who tried to kill her weren't finished. The dying embers stirred her awake. Dead had dozed in his wooden chair, rifle balanced on his lap. Creaking timber roused him first, then the soft rustle of fabric. She sat upright slowly, blinking at shadows like she questioned their reality. Her mouth opened, parched lips forming silent words before finding voice. Where am I? Jed remained still, letting his words flow low and steady. My property, my home about. 6 miles north of Cold Pine. Her eyes fluttered closed, then opened. They hanged me. They attempted to. Silence filled the space between them. She didn't inquire about his identity or express. Gratitude simply pulled the cover closer, like she wasn't certain of her safety. Jed respected that caution. Trust came at a premium in this territory. After a lengthy pause, she spoke. I'm called. Nantinit means spirit speaker. Jed acknowledged with a single nod. Jed Harper. Her head tilted, eyes sharpening. You're not military or lawman, yet you saved me. I like the proper choice. It's earned him a ghost of a smile, not warm, but like someone recalling warmth's sensation. She examined her hands, the bruising around her wrists. They claimed I took a horse. Said I brought trouble. Jed leaned closer, voice serious. Did you? She didn't respond, just gazed into the flames like they held secrets only she could decode. He didn't press some truths needed time to surface. Instead, he filled a tin cup with water and offered it. She drank slowly, deliberately, then set it down with hands that trembled once before starting. Outside, the wind had shifted direction. The threatening clouds that had loomed all night were dispersing. But Jed knew better than to trust clear western skies. I'll search for me, she said finally. Not a question, yes, he replied. And when they discover me here, they won't spare you. She studied him then, truly looked as if measuring the weight of scars hidden beneath his quietude. Whatever she found satisfied her. She nodded once, briefly. Jed rose, stoked the fire, then walked to the doorway and surveyed his land. Still empty, but wrongness tainted the wind. Towns didn't execute women without contingency plans. Tomorrow, riders would come with questions and guns. But tonight, beneath a roof he hadn't shared in years, a hunted soul lived. For now, that sufficed. At sunrise, scavenger birds began circling. Jed spotted them before hearing hoofbeats for dark shapes gliding deliberately above the southern ridge. In these parts, that meant one thing. Death had visited or was approaching. He stepped onto his porch, coffee steaming in his grip, shotgun leaning against the frame. The wind carried dust and distant echoes, then the steady rhythm of horses crossing. Dry ground behind him, floorboards creaked. Nanton stood at the threshold, blanket draped over her shoulders, eyes alert despite her injuries. She didn't ask what he saw, she already understood. Jed turned his head slightly. Visitors? How many? 3, possibly 4. Moving cautiously like they're uncertain what awaits them. She joined him on the porch, expression unreadable. Torch your home just to make their point. Jed sipped his coffee. Let them attempt it. They watched in silence as the horizon revealed riders discovered, lean horses primed for conflict. The men wore low-slung weapons and grim expressions. Sheriff Brackett led them as expected, same tarnished badge, same preacher's tone rapped. Around a killer's nature, he stopped 5 yards from the fence, tipping his hat. Morning, Harper. Jed said nothing. Brackett continued, eyes scanning past him toward the cabin. Heard there was commotion last night? A woman vanished from town? You haven't witnessed anything unusual out this way, have you? Jed held his position. Plenty unusual happens here, Sheriff. Coyotes howling like spirits, buzzards circling lazy, but no missing women. The sheriff smiled thinly, eyes remaining cold. Curious thing, some folks swear they spotted tracks heading this direction. Small prints, barefoot, recent. Know anything about that? Jed drank his coffee again, slowly. I'm no tracker, Sheriff. I deal with fence posts and livestock. Brackets. Smile disappeared. He glanced at his men, then back at Jed. Just so we understand, each other harboring a fugitive makes you complicit, whether she's Apache or not, especially if she's Apache. Jed met his stare. You finished? Brackett considered this, then wheeled his horse around for the moment. Departed slowly, but purposefully. Jed knew they'd return with reinforcements. Torches, maybe worse. He watched until the dust settled, then faced Nantan. She appeared unafraid, just prepared. "They're returning," he said. She nodded. "Let them come." In that instant, Jed grasped what kind of battle this would become. It's not about guilt or innocence, not even about survival, about defiance. Refusing to surrender, refusing to disappear. Two remnants of the old world standing together on land that had forgotten mercy. The wind carried echoing hoofbeats. Long after the riders vanished, the scavengers continued their endless patrol. That evening, the wind transformed, blowing eastward, hot and arid, the kind that whispered of flames and retribution. Jed stood beside the barn, checking lantern fuel, when he caught a glint momentary reflection off glass, high on the ridge. "Watchers," he said aloud, though Nantan had already appeared beside him. "They're positioning themselves. They'll wait for darkness," she said, pulling her blanket closer. "Then they'll bring fire." Jed agreed. "They want to create an example." Duh. From the barn's edge, they could see the cabin, weathered but solid, constructed by hand, one timber at a time, by someone who believed hard work might outrun grief. Now it might burn before morning. He turned to her. "Leave now. Follow the dry creek. Westward, you might gain half a day's advantage." She remained silent. He looked away. "You owe me nothing." Her voice stayed calm. "And you owe me nothing either. Yet here we stand." They fell quiet again. As twilight deepened, Jed opened the hidden compartment in the barn floor. Inside lay powder sacks. Wire coils and iron devices wrapped in canvas, remnants from another life. Railroad conflicts, they'd called them, blasting through mountains to lay tracks. Eliminating opposition when diplomacy failed. He hadn't touched them in 8 years. "You constructed this place like a stronghold," she said, crouching beside him. Jed replied, "I built it like a grave. Just didn't realize it yet. It worked without speaking traps placed, fuses prepared. The barn wired to illuminate the night sky if necessary. Afterward, they stood by the porch as the last light drained." "From the world? What if they bring others?" she asked. "Then we'll show them the price." In the distance, a dog barked a signal. Another answered. Brackett's men were approaching. Jed struck a match and watched the flame dance small in the breeze, fighting too. Survive? He let it burn to his fingertips before extinguishing it. "Prepare yourself," he said, feeling something ancient stir within, not rage or fear. Just the clear, steady weight of purpose. The initial blaze erupted near the livestock pen. Jed saw the flicker before smelling smoke, and heard dry grass crackling like parchment, wind spreading it across the slope toward the barn. Panic didn't touch him. Fire was a familiar adversary, predictable, ravenous, but not cunning. Men posed, the real threat. He stood at the fence, watching flames advance. From the trees beyond came laughter brackets, men intoxicated by power and liquor, celebrating prematurely. "They believe it's over," Nantan said, materializing beside him, face illuminated by firelight. Jed nodded. "We'll let them think so." Day turned toward the barn. Flames crept toward its northern wall. The charges inside wouldn't ignite, yet not without his command. But if the roof caught, everything could go. "Time," she asked. Jed studied the moon, now high and bright. "We have minutes." He gestured toward the cabin. "Stay low. The signal comes, don't hesitate." Nantan paused. "And you?" "I remain." Her jaw tightened. "You stay and perish." He met her gaze. "I stay and finish." She didn't argue, just melted into shadows. Jed returned his attention to the barn. Firelight danced higher now, flickering off iron nails, licking at hay. Stacks like scripture being read aloud. He moved to the fuse assembly, simple wire running down. The slope along fence posts into the barn's foundation. He lit a sulfur match. Wind threatened to kill it. Cupped it. Waited. Then spotted movement at the tree-line figures emerging from brush, rifles ready, boots swift. 6 of them now, Jed whispered. He touched flame to wire. The hillside responded. Thunder split the valley as fire erupted from the barn in a burst of light and debris. Men screamed, some thrown clear, others less fortunate. The earth shook, horses bolted, Through the smoke, Brackett's voice shouted something that didn't sound victorious. Jed watched motionless. From behind the smoke, Nantone emerged, blood on her cheek, blade in hand. "Two down by the western fence," she reported. Others scattered. He handed her his spare rifle. "Let's finish before they reorganize." Together they vanished into darkness, the rancher who buried sorrow in dust and the woman who refused to be erased. Some battles weren't about victory, they were about refusing defeat. Smoke hadn't cleared when spurs began ringing, faint at first. Metal against stone, then louder. Measured, not rushed. Jed froze behind a split rail, heart stopping. This wasn't Brackett's men, they shouted, cursed, kicked dirt when moving. This sound, ... double quotes, who approaches. Nantan whispered beside him. Jed responded with silence. Already. New? There'd been a man silhouetted in dust outside Carson's Crossing a decade ago, who'd ridden into a corrupt sheriff's camp with nothing but a cattleman's rope and a weary mare, leaving with blood on his saddle and 4 lawmen dead. Jed never forgot that walk. Calm, rhythmic, the sound of finality. Now it echoed again. The spurs stopped. A voice emerged, loud, not sharp, just clear. Jed Kane. Jed stepped from behind the fence, that name's buried. I go by Jed now. The figure emerged from smoke-long coat, dust-colored hat, rifle across his back. You always preferred burying names over burying problems, Jed squinted. Caleb Brackett. The man smiled. You knew I'd arrive. Jed nodded. You always enjoyed watching your own fires up close. Brackett surveyed the scene. You transformed this place into a battlefield. Jed shrugged. The world brought war to my doorstep. I simply answered. Behind him, Nanton stepped forward, her blade still crimson. Brackett's gaze shifted to her. So this is your choice now? Bleeding for phantoms and women? Jed didn't look at her. I choose to stop running. Silence stretched. Then Brackett stepped forward slowly. No rifles, he said. Just you and me, Jed. Like before. Jed dropped his repeater in the dirt. Agreed. They stood 10 paces apart, 2 men whose lives had unraveled to this single thread. Wind blew ash between them. A hawk circled overhead, silent witness to what? The world kept trying to forget, then it happened. The shot rang once, then silence. Brackett fell slowly, like someone surrendering more than blood. His revolver slipped from his fingers. Eyes wide, not in terror, but in something older recognition. Jed stood over him, chest heaving. You shouldn't have come. Brackett's lips moved. Maybe a curse, maybe a prayer. Then he stopped breathing. Nantan approached carefully. Are you all right? Jed nodded, but it was the kind of acknowledgement someone gave a gravestone, not a friend. From the ridges, what remained of Brackett's men scattered. Fire had consumed half the corral. The barn was nothing but blackened bones. But quiet had returned too. Quiet, the kind that meant fighting had ended, but peace hadn't arrived yet. Later, they buried the bodies, no markers, no prayers, just earth, sweat, and wind to remember them. Jed kept Brackett's hat, not for sentiment, but to remind himself what silence cost. As the sun disappeared behind hills, Nantan stood at the porch's edge, infant in her arms. The child had slept through thunder, fire, and death, now watching the sky like it owed her something. We'll head north at dawn, Nantan said. My sister waits near Red Basin. Maybe we'll begin again. Jed observed her. You'll succeed. She nodded. And you? He looked at the lance guard, burned, but alive. I'll ride south. Mary Hendricks still needs escort. Denver's trail is long. Nanton's smile was faint. The solitary man rides again. Not solitary, he said, watching the baby. Just incomplete. Reached out, touched his shoulder. It spoke more than farewells ever could. The next morning, the trail divided, one toward mountains, one toward plains. Jed rode westward, hoofbeats soft against ash and gravel. Behind him, wind whispered through broken fences, across scorched soil, over blood that would fade, but never be forgotten. And ahead, maybe not peace, but purpose. Sometimes people build barriers to keep the world away. But real strength lies in knowing when to open the gate. In the frontier, justice isn't always about law. Sometimes it's about standing firm when silence would be simpler. Because remaining human means not forgetting what deserves remembrance. Now, discover an even more compelling tale by clicking the video on your screen, one with a twist so powerful it will stay with you forever. Click to continue your journey.